Welcome to Sales Fiction, a podcast that helps small sales teams get big results. I'm your host, Christy Lawrence, the founder of Mighty Sales and a longtime sales professional who traded my corporate sales career to help small but mighty teams do more with less. Each week on this podcast, we separate sales fact from sales fiction so that you can hyper-focus your effort on the skills, strategies, and tools that will have the biggest impact on your bottom line. Let's dive right in. Welcome to this episode of Sales Fiction. I am super excited to have a guest with us here today. We have Katelynn Togiai, who is the Corporate Director of Sales for Ignite Hotels. Katelynn is an amazing expert on sales. She manages sales for 10 hotels across the Northwest. She works with multiple national brands and markets, so she always has to be on her toes and be flexible to find the strategies that are going to work for each individual properties and the teams within those properties. She has been in the industry for more than 12 years. She is a fellow WSU alumni, so go Cougs.
Cougs.
Katelynn, thank you so much for being here today. I know you and I have been talking on and off for the last year and a half. You have had a really challenging job the last year and a half being in the hotel industry with COVID. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and talk a bit about the industry and just connect and hopefully share some insight and see where, this little journey will take us.
Yeah. It's great because I feel like, I love having other women professionals in sales because I feel like so many of the voices in sales are male dominated, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think women in particular bring a different bent on sales. So I'm just excited to have you here. I'm going to kind of just jump you into the hot seat right from the jump because you are in the hotel industry. Mm-hmm. You guys have been hit hard by COVID.
Been the wildest 6 months of my life, something I never thought. I mean, no one ever thought that this would happen in their lifetime. But even as it happened, it was like, there's no way, or this is going to be over. And just as it's continuing month by month, we all look at each other and are like, we cannot believe that we're still here and we're still in it. And now it's truly hit us. We know that we're in this for the long haul. And sadly enough, we might get into this, a little bit later too, but it's going to continue for probably at least the next year. At least business as usual will not be as usual for a while in the hotel industry. And we're accepting it. We're planning for 2021. And, it's a little grim, but we're making the best of it and we're pivoting and shifting. And you and I have talked about that a bit, and I'm sure we'll get into it later. But it's been wild and something that hopefully one day I'll look back on and be like, wow, I made it through that.
I mean, that's right. You got to think about everything's a learning opportunity. And I would say the nice thing about COVID is we're all learning together because nobody's been through it before. And I remember actually sitting down and talking with you right at the beginning of COVID. So you and I had met, we were talking kind of some sales strategy development stuff. And you're like, we're getting ready to do this. I think it was March Madness.
Yeah, we were going to do a March Madness blitz. We had all of our cute little knickknacks we were handing out to clients. It was themed. They were doing a bracket. Each of my sales members were competing against each other. We had been prepping for it for quite some time. Super excited because it was kind of one of the most creative blitzes, I'd say, that I've done with my team. And then literally Black Friday hit. The March Madness was canceled. I think we met that week.
Yeah.
Before or whatever. And it's was just a mass exodus of everything. And we're like, well, there's no way we can go out. I mean, the NBA is not playing. We can't go do cold calls on people.
Right.
It was just so crazy. But yeah, it was right then. And we kind of joked about it, but it obviously was before it just came to a screeching halt all of a sudden that very next week. So
100%. And I think we kind of had a sense at that time of something's happening.
Yeah, it's going to be.
But what is it exactly?
Yeah,
what's it going to be?
Exactly is it going to entail? It's okay. It's dangerous. It looks kind of crazy overseas, but is it really going to hit us? Is it, we have good medical system. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Yeah. So obviously that was a really rapidly evolving situation and you guys had to change things pretty quickly. Looking back on that, what do you feel like in terms of lessons learned are some of the things that have helped you be successful and maintain you obviously didn't have no impact from this, but that helped you maintain morale, helped you kind of keep things moving forward.
Yeah. It was quite interesting too, because that week that it all happened and was going on, we were opening a new hotel. We actually opened the day that the tournaments canceled and NBA canceled and everything. So my boss was gone. She was gone for 2 weeks leading, even maybe the week before. I was like, okay, her name's Katie. Like some groups are kind of concerned about this and canceling. And we kept trying to come up with these policies for if people are starting to get nervous, but she was busy. I mean, she was working 18 hours a day trying to get this hotel open because we were hosting the tournament in, Spokane that they were playing up there for the NCAA. And I was really the one just leading it. I'm like, we have to put something out there as a company of, okay, we're going to allow people to cancel freely. It was literally until March 31st. Like that's how short term we're looking. Like, okay, they have the rest of March. If they really want to cancel, if they're nervous about it, sure. And put together all of these policies. And I think this, though, is probably for everyone in the industry. No one really knew, but it's funny, the memes you see how, oh my gosh, the policy changes day by day. It did. It was like on a Friday, I would send an email, this is what it's happening. And then by Monday, it was like, okay, through the end of April, everyone can cancel. You don't even have to tell me like, cancel it, try to get them to rebook, and it was hectic, but we were really good about just rolling with the punches and going with the flow. And I don't think I would have done it any differently. I think we maintained really good communication as a team that I don't know that there would have been anything, I guess, that I could have done differently. Yeah. We could have said, I wish I would have planned. And we would have made sure that, we had this one policy that was going to last us 3 months, but there's just no way. I mean, people are still changing things as we go through as far as booking groups and canceling and rebooking. And I think for what we had, the tools that we had, I think we did a good job. And it was just picking up the phone, talking to my sales teams every day, staying in the loop with the hotel general managers, our director of revenue, myself, my boss. I got a little bit more bullet pointed how I wanted them to present me information as groups canceled. Mm-hmm. And so that did, I shifted my information intake and what I needed from my teams a little bit because it was kind of just mass information at me all at once. So that helped. But otherwise, I mean, like I said, I think we did a good job for what it was. And I reached out to a ton of people in the different markets that I represent and people at the convention centers, like not my own team, obviously, because I was calling these shots and it was wild for me. Like, yes, I've been in the industry for a while, but never at this capacity. And so I had reached out to the director of operations for the Boise Center and trying to get to see what other people are doing. Like, are you refunding people? Like, come on, they should be able to book in July. Why are we going to refund them? Why are we going to refund or let someone cancel in September? That's in 6 months. Like, no, and him and I just talked back and forth and he's like, sadly, I think it might be the tip of the iceberg. And 2 weeks later, we're like, we never would have guessed that this is where we're at. So to have those resources.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like some things that really helped you were knowing that you were going to have to stay flexible and not getting caught up and too tied to anything. Like, even though we sent this out on Friday, if we have to send out something again on Monday, that's what it is. And that's so
we're like, you can't count on this to last more than potentially 48 hours. So just get used to it.
What you can count on is that it will change.
Yes, exactly. You're changing every day.
Yeah. But I do think that's a different mindset, right? That knowing like it's going to change and I'm going to be okay with that. Keeping communication open, but then streamlining it to the most important things and getting support, talking to other people that are in a similar situation.
Yeah. I lived in Sacramento, California for a long time at a big hotel. And so many of my, coworkers and friends are now in other cities. And my old boss of that hotel, he's now he was the general manager there, but he's GM at the W in Bellevue. And he was super awesome to have as a connection because I was, messaging him because everything was happening in Seattle before it was shifting over here. And I remember asking him what his hotel occupancy was. And he said 3%. And I was like, no way. Like, we were lucky. The lowest we really went down to was 10, but it was really nice to have people in, major cities. Yeah. So Seattle, Bellevue, Boise, smaller towns too, to kind of get the best package, which would fit us in each of our markets.
And I think that's so important because sometimes when we're in crisis management mode and we're also doing things that we've never done before, right? So we feel a little bit like we're in over our heads. It can be easy to go internal. Like, let me just figure this out because it takes vulnerability to ask for help and ask for input.
Yeah.
But we are stronger together.
We are, for sure.
And none of us have to figure it out.
Yeah, reaching out to the VCB because 4 out of 10 of our hotels are in Tri-Cities. Our corporate office is based out of Tri-Cities. So this is our community. I'm not saying the other ones aren't, but of course this is home, and I'm the closest with that visitors center, the visitors bureau. And so I reached out to the director of convention sales, Laura, who then reached out to Michael Bakovich and said, hey, we just need to figure out what all of the other hotels are doing locally. Because I have contacts here, of course, but we're all used to meeting in this big kind of setting. And so we ended up putting together a meeting, because it was before you could not meet.
When you could still meet with people.
I don't even know that socially distancing was a thing at that point, actually. But, we stayed kind of spaced out and met and went through some best practices, and that's helped. And a lot of course, big DMOs, which are your kind of travel marketing programs in the cities that bring people in, are now doing regular Zoom meetings and stuff to keep the industry connected. But I remember that was like one of the first, thank you so much, Katelynn, for putting this together. They came to one of our hotels, and it just helped us feel like we were in it together and not alone.
And it's such a big testament to the idea of collaboration versus competition, that yes, you have competitors. Yeah. Yes, you are competing in the market space, but ultimately you guys can all learn from each other, and it's like rising tide.
Yeah. My boss, our owner, actually, when he was the general manager at one of our hotels before we really started growing, he coined the term, or at least he's the only person I've heard it, but frenemies. There are friends and kind of enemies. So I have a lot of frenemies, and they're friends first, but
yeah, which is totally true. And that, like, sometimes you're going to get scrappy and you want to be competitive. Yeah. Especially in sales, you want to win the deal, right? Yeah. When you're going face to face, like
exactly.
After the game, after competition's over, it's shake hands and how do we support everybody?
Yeah, I was kind of telling you before we started, there's some shifts going on right now with a lot of major contracts, and airlines are moving, train rail companies are moving around. And one of my really good friends here is director of sales at a competitor, and we actually had lunch, and we both know we toured the airlines. We're like, okay, well, when I win it, this is going to happen. But it's, we both know it's business. And of course we want it for our hotels, but it's not like I'm going to unfriend Sarah because she won the Horizon contract. It's like, no, we worked hard, and may the best woman win.
Exactly. And I think that is like, anytime you're competing for business, when you can like set aside those friendships when you're in negotiations and do it best for your business and be strategic and have those, but then once you're out of the conference room, you're back to being friends.
We didn't talk about it at each other until the site, and we knew, like, we all know where these people are going, what's going on, and we're very close, and we don't have a decision yet. But as soon as our proposals, our one-on-ones were done, we laughed a little bit about it. We'll see. Yeah.
We're going to take a time out. We're not going to talk for, we're like on, what is it? Exactly. We're on lockdown from communication. We're all familiar with that.
Exactly. We were on lockdown for a week.
So it sounds like you've gotten a lot of support and collaboration and led a lot of that during this COVID period. But thinking more generally about sales, what do you feel like is the best piece of sales advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I would say that the best piece of sales advice I've ever received is to overqualify your business. Too often than not, I'll ask my sales managers, oh, this is a great booking that you had. It's, so-and-so much money, or it's a quarterly meeting. Like, what are they doing? And this is typically before I really get my hands on them and teach them what they should be doing. But they might tell me the company's name, but they have no idea what they do. Actually, in fact, just the other week, my sales manager, she has this group in-house. They've been here for a while. It's a tech group. But I talked to the general manager, and she's like, no, they're like building trenches. And again, I talked to the sales manager. I'm like, what do they do? Are you sure so yeah, it's a tech company. And we pulled up their website, and I scrolled to the bottom. I'm like, yeah, well, they also build fiber optic tunnels. So these are the people building the trenches. Like, we should know exactly who they're putting. I gave her a little hard time. Like, okay, you should have known this. Yeah. They've been in-house for a month, and she's kind of remote too. So she doesn't work at the hotel. She's not seeing the guests check in and out every day, but that's why you talk to your client. Oh, these people are going to be staying for so long. Do they need meals? What are they doing exactly? Are they installing a software program? Oh no, they're building the trenches for these fiber communications and this and that. And so I have a very strict checklist that they are required to ask when they get incoming calls. And it really is getting to know the business. They're supposed to ask these questions, and we can all make it sound non-robotic because we're professionals and that's what they do. And of course you will go off here and there, and that's what you should do. But like, I want you to ask these questions before you even quote them. When I get an inquiry call, it takes me 20 minutes. I know the lady, I know where she went to school. I know how many kids she has, building the relationship and knowing your client not just being a transaction and quoting dates, rates, and space. Anyone can do that. A front desk agent should do that. I'm paying you to build the relationship, know your clients, know who else they could bring us. And that's what every salesperson should be doing. And then always answering your phone.
That's hard to do in the era of cell phones, but yeah, you never know who might be calling.
That's true. I answer every unknown number. I'm in office still, so my main line, but a lot of my clients have my cell, but I answer every unknown number. I usually regret it, but I still do. It's just, I'm a creature of habit that way.
So I want to come back to that because I think that's important. But before I do, because that leads me to another thing that we have talked about. But what's interesting to me about this overqualifying your business and having a checklist of questions is I feel like it really does two things. One, it helps you to support the customer, like you're saying, because you know who they are. So you can provide an outstanding experience. I think people resist it because they're like, they don't even want to feel robotic or they're so focused on winning the business.
Yeah. They're in a hurry, always in a hurry.
But when you do it, the thing people love the most is talking about themselves. And you're essentially giving them an opportunity to do that. Yeah. And the more they talk about themselves, the more you know, which makes it easier for you to sell to them.
It does. I mean, we're truly understanding their needs, their direct needs and their implied needs. And you can tell a client that knows their salesperson versus someone that's just booking and they're going to book anywhere. But, you know, it makes such a big difference. And you can make connections for so many things down the roads by doing this too, you know, so it's very important to know who your business is.
And the small and big things. I met with a potential client today and we had, this is our second meeting. We just met, you know, had a quick phone conversation. And in that phone conversation, when we were scheduling this meeting, he's like, well, I got to do it at this time because I need to be done by this time because my daughter's getting her wisdom teeth out. So this was a couple weeks ago. And the first thing I asked him when I saw him was, how's your daughter feeling about her surgery? Yeah. And he was like, wow, you have a really good memory. And it makes people feel valued and heard. And it's a simple little thing, but if you don't take the time to ask me questions, absolutely. So let's get back to the phone. So you said you answer your phone all the time, even unknown callers. You might be an anomaly in that, but I am a big believer that the phone call is still the best tool you have in sales. People don't use it very often. People think no one's going to answer the phone. So talk to me about kind of your thoughts on using the phone versus email versus social.
Yeah, I think that the phone is very important. I mean, you not only just even from starting cold calling, we have, of course, contact lists that we go through and emails are so easy to shoot out, right? But is that the same contact? Are they in the same position? They might not respond to your, what they might think, and I'm using air quotes here, spam mail. It's not spam, of course. It's very important information that we're sending. But if you pick up the phone, you can get so much more information out of this person. They might be in a different department. They might not be there. Not everyone reroutes the person's, you know, all my ex-employees, I still get their emails if someone happens to email them, but not every company does that. So your email could easily just go unanswered for, you know, trying to find new business. Yeah. But then having that existing business, picking up the phone and like you said, just asking how they're doing, you know, if you know them well enough, touching on that personal life, it just shows that time and effort that you want to put in. And there's no reading between the lines. I mean, I'm a very wordy email writer and personable, but some people are short and direct and like, oh gosh, she must be in a bad mood today. But you call her and no, that's just the way that Sharon is on email. That's just her email etiquette might be different than mine. But our phone conversations and in-person meetings, we are great friends now and chat all the time. But she actually, this client, that is her name that I'm thinking of. She's still to this day, I worked with her for almost 5 years, is so short on email that anytime they come in-house for their conference, we sit and talk all day. Like I go back there and check on their meetings whenever they have them. And so they're local repeat, or not local, but they come to the Tri-Cities hotels and repeat every year. And she was intimidating before I met her the first time, just communicating mostly over email. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm nervous. Like she seems like a tough cookie, but met her in person, it was completely different. So, and then people might think that about yourself. So how do you come across as email? Maybe that's not how you truly are, but they are going to perceive it way different. Where on the phone, you can let them know who you really are and vice versa.
Yeah. That just reminds me, I have a super good friend. She's actually my godmother. And she had sent me an email and I'm so short on email. I think I replied yes. And she was like mad at me for a month because she's like, that email was so rude. And I'm like, oh, I just don't even think like you could have just written like, thank you. Mm-hmm. And that would have made like a huge difference. But it was so just like, this is da-da-da, peace.
And I would never knowing you in person, like you are, you're so friendly and nice and genuine. And not saying there's anything wrong against you, but your emails are not that they're short and weird, but I know that, and I know that's not how you are by any means.
100%.
Everyone's busy and different, and you're very in person. You like to do the in-person meetings and even Zoom. I remember my first Zoom meeting. Gosh, why can't they just call me on the phone? Like, do we really have to Zoom? And it made a big difference, and I like it. And so, yeah, you just have to be aware that not everyone is who they are over email, and on the phone you can make such a better connection.
And especially in this kind of COVID reality that we're living in, that people are craving human connection. And so thinking about, you might not be able to drop by potential customer's office and do the in-person stuff that you used to be able to do. So every little bit of personal connection that you make makes a huge difference. So a phone call is better than an email. A Zoom meeting is better than a phone call. And always thinking through what that is to build those relationships and connections.
Yeah, I would agree completely.
The other thing I always say is the easier it is for you to outreach, the easier it is for people to ignore you. So like social media might be like, oh, if I like something or message them on social media, I can block you like so fast, not even think about it. Email's super easy to delete and ignore. Phone calls, like, yes, maybe they don't answer the phone, but if they do answer the phone, the likelihood that they're not going to listen to you at all is less than if you had emailed them and they read that email. And of course, in person, when people see you face to face, there are general social rules that apply.
Going to be a bit more open, typically.
Absolutely. And so like as people in sales roles or leading sales teams, we have to be the ones to take the leadership on vulnerability. Actually, it makes it harder then for the prospects to just delete and ignore us.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, when I train everyone, I let them sit with me while I do my prospecting phone calls because I was nervous the first time. You know, I started in the industry. I was actually in operations and was food and beverage manager for a long time. And when I first moved over to sales, I was nervous. Like I would want to shut my door if I made prospecting calls because I didn't want people to hear me because I was embarrassed. Like, what if I said something wrong? And you do, and especially in the beginning, you fumble a little bit, you know? And so now knowing that as someone training salespeople, I always like, come listen to my calls before I make them call. Do outside calls, obviously not right now, but whenever I trained anyone new, I always went with them. I would never send someone out on an outside sales call solo if they've never done it, you know, because I have some entry level sales positions that we hire. And now a lot of my directors of sales do that. And so I'm really training more of the people that are more experienced, but I tell all of them, like, you need to take her out on her first call. She's never done it.
100%. One thing I actually do with a lot of my clients is set it up so that we do calls together as a team. And people hate it at first.
Oh, we talked about this. Yeah.
People absolutely. I've never met with a sales team that's like, yes, let's do this. Yeah. They're so resistant to it. They hate it. We just essentially, we even do it on Zoom now. People take turns making cold calls, making follow-up calls, whatever the goal is. And we do it once a week, every week, consistently.
What do you call it? Like, I swear you call it?
We call it Power Hour.
Yeah, Power Hour. Exactly.